It's new play day on Shakesyear. It's new play day on Shakesyear. We are digging into The Merchant of Venice, and I promised you a fun little story before we get started, which I will. The Merchant of Venice was the first main stage show that I was in college, but I wasn't actually in it. I understudied one of the casket bearers because the woman who had been playing that part got sick. So they called me at like 11 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday and said, "Are you available this evening?" And I said yes, and they said, "Get to the costume shop at 2." And I said, "Okay." So I got there and they fit me in a dress, and then they said, "Be back here at 6." And they showed me what to do. They were basically like, "Follow that person, and here we've written your one line on your prop. Make sure you have your prop with you." And that was it. And then I went on, and that was the first main stage show that I did in college. So I have a bit of a soft spot for The Merchant of Venice. And this is one that you've probably heard about, or at least heard some of the speeches from, or heard about the character Shylock, who is a Jewish man who is a moneylender in this play. And he has a reputation, just as people are talking about Shakespeare in general, as being this fantastic villain of the play for demanding a pound of flesh and all that sort of thing, but we'll get to that bit later. The thing is, when Shylock is done right and done well, I actually find him to be an incredibly sympathetic character. And I don't know if that's because Shakespeare was anti-Semitic and wrote him so well, or if it's just through the lens of doing the play now, because there is some anti-Semitism in the play. There's some characters who are very, very anti-Semitic, and it's got some sort of disturbing themes in that realm. So I kind of apologize for that, and maybe call that a trigger warning if you need to. Shakespeare does sometimes refer to Shylock just by the religion that he is, which makes me a little bit sad. They were different times. They spoke differently back then. I apologize in advance if any of that is offensive to anyone. Again, from my perspective, Shylock is a very sympathetic character, and I agree with his plight. But we'll get further into that once we know what his plight is. So let's kick off. And today we kick off with Salanio and Antonio and Salario, or as he is known in the folio, Salarino, because it made more sense to have Salanio and Salarino as opposed to Salanio and Salario. Anyway, these three guys are hanging out, and Antonio is a merchant who lives in Venice, actually, as is Salanio. They're both merchants who live in Venice. And then Salario, or Salarino, as he is sometimes known, is just a friend of Antonio's. But the three of them come in, and they're walking along, and Antonio's like, "Oh, I'm so sad. Why is it that I am so sad?" And Salanio's like, "I bet I know why you're so sad. It's probably money, right? You're worried about your ships that are out and about." And Salarino, or Salario, is like, I would be worried about my ships if I had that much money, out on the sea where who knows what could happen. And Salanio says, "My wind-cooling breath would blow me to an ague when I thought what harm a wind too great might do at sea. I should not see the sandy hourglass run, but I should think of shallows and of flats, and see my wealthy Andrew docks in the sand, veiling her high top lower than her ribs to kiss her burial. Should I go to church, and see the holy edifice of stone, and not bethink me straight of dangerous rocks, which, touching but my gentle vessel's side, would scatter all her spices on the stream, and robe the roaring waters with my silks, and, in a word, but even now worth this, and now worth nothing, shall I have the thought to think on this, and shall I lack the thought that such a thing bechanced would make me sad? But tell not me. I know Antonio is sad to think about his merchandise." So Salanio, being a fellow merchant, is also like, yeah, as soon as my ships are out at sea, all I can think about is how one storm can undo them, or they could be dashed upon the rocks, or all of this sort of stuff. And I'm reminded of rocks, or I'm reminded of storms in my daily life when I go to church, when I'm walking around, all of this sort of thing. And that's all I can think about when my ships are out, is how all of this money that I invested to bring this product back could be gone in an instant because of the winds of the sea. So this must be why Antonio was sad, is because he's worried about these investments that he has made. And Antonio was like, well, actually no, because I have a lot of different ships going in a lot of different directions with a lot of different products, so it's not like I put all my eggs in one basket. My eggs are kind of evenly scattered, so even if there's a storm on one sea, that's not going to totally undo me. So no, yeah, I'm not sad because I'm worried about my business. And then they're like, no, if it's not your business, then you must be in love. And he's like, no, I'm not in love. But then the guys, Salanio and Salanio, or Salarino and Salanio, have some thoughts on the prospect of Antonio being in love, but we will get further into those tomorrow. So I will see you then as we follow these merchants of Venice and their investments. Doesn't this sound like a thrilling play? It gets better, I swear. It totally gets better. I'll see you tomorrow for more.